when I got asked to do this session, I thought, wow, what do I have to offer the museum world? And actually when I got asked to do this session, I had just moved over as the Director of Culture over to the city. And as Francine mentioned, I was very heavily involved in creating new changes or bringing new changes and creating some innovative ways of moving the library service across. So what I'm going to talk about today is really some of the basics of what we did, some of the things that we had to think about, and the biggest part, the engagement of the staff. So we would not have been here and doing what we were doing and to the point where we're at without involving the staff and involving the staff heavily. We started trying to improve customer service back in 2005. We had a whole bunch of initiatives that we implemented. A little background quickly, we're 7 branches, anywhere from 30,000 square feet to a small little heritage building that operates out of Thornhill Village actually is that location. That's about 8,000 square feet. So we've got facilities all across Markham, and we wanted to make sure that our service was consistent, that we were offering what the customers wanted. So I'll try to use the term customer, but I'll also try to use the term user. We use the term customer for our end user because the way we look at it is the people who are ultimately using our services are customers and they expect a level of service, and so we started looking at everything we do from that point of view, the customer's point of view. And one of the things we wanted to make sure we do is, or everything that we do, we wanted to make sure that ultimately it impacted that end user or the customer. So why did we do this? We wanted to make sure we were relevant. So it's probably some of the things, I mean, not if this sounds familiar in your world, but relevance, value, efficiency and effectiveness, which is what where our funders are always looking to us. We wanted to make sure that we were offering services that the customers actually wanted. And we also wanted to make sure that our staff were aware of what the expectations were. And we wanted to create some heavy-duty changes with how we offered those services. Initially, it started as we were just going to look at our policies and procedures all around the country and various library conferences. When we started this back in 2010, we submitted it to the Ontario Library Association thinking by 2011, we'd be ready to tell them about all the fantastic stuff we did. In 2011, when we stood in front of a huge conference hall, we actually had to stand there and say, you know what, we haven't actually accomplished what we wanted to do, but here are the reasons why, because it is massive, massive change. And if you're in it, you've got to be in it for the long run. So it does take a while. So now we're actually starting to see the effects of the changes that we've made, which I'll kind of talk about as we go forward. And this Saturday, I realized, I haven't been over in the library world for about 5 months now. This Saturday, they're actually doing almost like a launch celebration, a completion of the project. So it's been a long time in the making. It is a cultural change. And by cultural, I don't mean cultural venues. I mean, it's a change in the way your staff think. It's a change in the way they offer service. It's a change in the way they behave. And it isn't something that you're going to just be able to affect through policies and procedures. It's involving the staff, engaging the staff, and making sure that they're actually a part of that process. When we first started this process, we called it a customer service review is what it started up as. And we presented it to a group of 50 staff. We have about 200 staff in total, or at the time we had 200 staff in total. We've got an extra branch now, so that number's gone up if anybody's checking my statistics. But we had about 200 staff in total. We brought in 50 of them. We put a call out and brought in about 50 staff. And we said to the staff, we want you to be a part of this customer service review. And when we explained to them what we wanted to do, staff actually said, you know what, that's not a review, that's a revolution. So that name stuck. We actually, at that point, we realized we need to involve the staff, and they need to be a part of everything that we do from here on forward, including, let's let them name the project. I mean, who cares what we name the project? It's an internal thing, but it's actually stuck with us. And the customer service revolution is what we called it. There was a lot of concern at the management and the senior management level, handing off control to staff. So if that sounds familiar or uncomfortable, it was uncomfortable at the time. And I'll talk about another initiative that we implemented that was really uncomfortable for management. But I guarantee you, if you involve the staff, if you engage the staff, that's where the knowledge resides. And there was a lot of resistance from staff as well, but we actually brought that resistance in. And one of the things we learned is there's wisdom in that resistance. So as you're creating change, as you're moving things forward, you're going to get staff who are going to want to be doing the way that you've been always doing it. Why do we have to change? And in that why, there's actually some knowledge, and there's some things that we actually, at one point we wanted to do one way, and we realized we're gonna actually do it this way because there was some information that we didn't have that staff had, and they're the ones who are on the front lines who are dealing with whatever it is that the service offering is. So we heavily engage the staff in this process. We talked about touch points. So, and this is one slide that will relate to any industry, anybody who's offering services. This is something that you're going to have to think about. What are your touch points? At what point do your end users, your customers, your patrons, are they making contact with the services that you offer? And are they all consistent throughout? So you've got your entranceway, the signage, your website, your staff, your volunteers, the way you present the signs that you present or the information that you present, your telephone service, all those points of contact. At that point, your end user is making a decision about you. So it's your brand, it's about who you are as a, whatever the corporation, the museum, whatever it is that your service, that you're out there offering as a service, they're making a decision. So we realized that it's not just, again, about the policies or how that interaction happens at a service point. It is about how the branch or the facility looks, right down to the washrooms. So we did a project where we renovated a branch, and we got to near the end of the actual renovation, and we're starting to run out of money. And it came down to the point where it was a washroom that was costing us a little bit more. And the architect at that point said to us, you know what? I don't want to cheapen the washroom because it'll impact what the community or the end user sees. And we had him explain that to us, and the way he explained it is, you go into a fancy restaurant and you have your $100 meal, whatever it is, and you enjoy that time, and you need to go wash up afterwards, and you walk into the washroom, and the washroom is disgusting. So how is that going to impact how they've just viewed you? I mean, it's an extreme example. It's an example that really opened our eyes to, we need to look at everything that we offer, including what your parking lot looks like, what your facilities look like, what your signs look like, what your front entrance looks like. That's the point where your end user is making a decision about whether they want to be there or not, whether they want to come back or not. So we looked at all the touch points, and then we started talking about customer service. So customer service, you're all in a service industry, you're offering services out there. Customer service, and we went to our staff and we said, we want to change. We've been looking at the services we've been offering. We actually have an online satisfaction survey that we do on an ongoing basis. It sits on the website of the library. And we've been really stagnant. We haven't been able to move the numbers in terms of satisfaction or how the services we offer. So we want to offer better service. And we started talking about excellent customer service. And our staff said to us, well, we're already offering excellent customer service. What do you mean? We're doing a great job. And you know what? They were. And when we started talking about it, we realized we really don't have a definition of what excellent customer service looks like. At the management level, we didn't really realize what we were looking for. And the staff already felt they were offering excellent service. So we went through an exercise and we went, okay, let's look at not what we do, but let's look at what you've experienced out there. As a staff member, as an individual in the community, let's talk about, and we went through an exercise, give us examples of excellent customer service. And we went through we put staff in groups, we had them kind of talk at their table, talk about what they were experiencing, and I opened it up with one of the examples that I had. And I was on my way to, between meetings, stopped in at Starbucks, and I think it's the only Starbucks I know of which is here in Markham that has a drive-through. So stopped in at the Starbucks, in the car, ordered, got up to the window and realized, oh dear, I don't have my wallet, so I guess I'm missing lunch. And as I got up to the window, I apologized profusely. Sorry guys, I don't have my wallet. There's nothing I can do. You'll just have to cancel the order. And the guy said, no, wait. And I thought, I'm about to get a lecture, I'm about to get yelled at. And so I waited, and he came back and he handed me about $12 worth of drink and food through the window. And I thought, wow, I said, you heard me, I don't have my wallet. And he said, no, it's okay, we just want you to have an awesome afternoon. So it is, I mean, and when you tell that story, you kind of go, wow, that's awesome. So when I told that story to my staff, the initial response was, oh, you know what? If you keep telling that story, people are going to abuse that service. And my response was, well, no. First of all, look at the service model. Their service model actually is to, and when we've looked into, we stole one of their training manuals. We've got staff who were on the inside, who are now on the outside, who we've hired. And I'll talk about competencies as well. But we've got their training manual, and the training manual actually says, with respect to food that either is canceled or is not going to be given to the customer, is just give it away, because otherwise it's going in the garbage anyway. So the philosophy is we're going to either throw it in the garbage or we'll create some goodwill and give it away. So when we started looking at that, and the staff were saying, well, and with us in libraries is library fines. So if you're going to waive a library fine, you're going to get the whole community coming in asking for waves of fines or discounts off this or that. And we said, no, you know what, if you explain and you have this relationship and you develop this relationship, the small minority, and I've told this story millions of times, I'm willing to bet Starbucks does not have an epidemic of people going through and pretending like they don't have their wallets. The small majority who are going to abuse it, they're going to abuse it anyway. So let's not create rules or create policies or procedures around that small majority. Let's create rules and policies, if you're going to call them that, and we'll talk about how some of that changed for us as well. Let's do that so we're actually creating goodwill, so we're creating excellent customer service. So what you see here are the terms that came up. And every time I do this exercise, in this group we won't go through it, but every time I do this exercise, the same concepts come up. So then we turned around to the staff and said, is this how our end users, our customers are talking about us? Are they going to say that we're providing excellent service, or we're approachable, we're attentive? All those things that when they came up in the discussions, do we feel that? And the staff finally started to realize that, you know what, we probably could do better. And that's when they were able to free up the way they were thinking, move away from thinking that we were already doing an awesome job, why do we need to change? And we were able to move it forward from there. One of the other issues we had was trying to make our services seamless. So it goes back to the touch points, all the different service points that you have, all the different points where your customers are interacting with you or your end users or patrons are interacting with you. And does that service seem or appear to be seamless? So do you get the same level of service if you call in to ask a question, or if you go to the website, or if you walk in off the street? And are your customers or end users, when they walk into your facility, are they going to understand what you're about? Are they going to walk in and absolutely need to talk to somebody to figure out what you're offering or where to go or what to do next? Or is your facility set up such that it's understandable, it appears comfortable and seamless, and you're able to actually walk into the whatever the facility is and understand what the service offering is and what you can get out of that service? So this was another lens that we put on how we were going to approach the changes we were making. This was another big thing for us. So this may or may not relate, but maybe it does. Are you doing things that are making it easier for yourselves, or are you doing things that are making it easier for your end user, your customer, your patron? In our case, we had a lot of rules in place, a lot of policies that were created so that we could simplify our own lives, ignoring how the end user was going to see us. So again, we kept going back to, we've got to look at how we're perceived and how we come across. And if we're doing things, one, that don't impact the customer at all, we need to stop doing it. And that'll free up your time and your resources to do all the other innovative things that you want to do. And two, if we're doing things that are actually making it more difficult for the customer, yet maybe a little easier for us, we need to reconsider how we approach that. So this was another kind of frame or a lens that we looked at when we were examining what we do and how we do it. And then we took it to the staff and we said, we want to make this really simple. We don't want to come up with this huge two-page document about what we do and why we do it and how we do it. And so we distilled it down to this. This was an exercise that we went through with staff, and we said, what is it that we do? What is it that we want to be seen as? And how are we going to get there? And they came up with this, and they call it the service standard, and it's creating the experience, so looking at what you do and how you do it and making sure that that experience is something that is going to be acceptable to your end user and your customer. Building the relationships, and in our world, in the library world, we really need to develop relationships, and it's the same thing if you're having return, and it depends on how you look at your patrons and your end users. Are they going to be coming back? Are you developing relationships where they're going to want to come back? Or is this a single one-time use of your services? And it depends on how you consider what your service model or what your business model is. A quick example, there's two tea companies, Teavana and David's Tea. Who likes tea? Who likes Teavana? Who likes David's Tea? Right? I do this every single time, and I'll tell you why. You walk into Teavana, their service model, and I've actually read about this, their service model is hit you hard, hit you when you come in, sell, sell, sell. You walk away feeling used and abused with $1,000 worth of tea. And if you've been in there, you understand what I'm talking about. And you probably will never go back because you just, and they're okay with that. Teavana has decided that's their service model, that's their business model. They want to make the money, as much money as they can off you the first time around, and then they're not going to worry about you. Whereas David's Tea, you walk in, they're very nice, they're very approachable, they're not going to try to oversell you, they're not going to try to beat you down until they get every penny out of your pocket. And it's amazing, you go on the internet, and I do this a lot because of the whole customer service end of things, is just to read what people are saying about different businesses. Because of my experience, I want to know how others are feeling. And on the Tivana side, there's people who've walked away like, I just felt like a kid when I walked away from there. And I walked away with $500 or $1,000, literally, these are people who've walked away with $1,000 worth of goods that they didn't really even want. So they're never going back again. So again, relate this to the service that you offer. And if this is kind of difficult in terms of moving from one to the other, one of the other things we needed to do was look at what others are doing. So we didn't want to keep looking at how libraries do things. We didn't want to keep looking at how other similar services to us in a public environment, a municipal environment were doing things. We wanted to look at how others were doing things. So we actually started looking at hotels. We started looking at Starbucks in terms of their service offerings. And it's amazing how many good customer service stories come out of Starbucks. Starbucks has amazing customer service for the most part. I've had some bad experiences, but I probably have about 4 stories of my own that I can tell. But we looked at what others are doing, and in terms of how we offer those services. Something as simple as your service point. So when someone walks into your facility and you've got a desk and you've got staff there that are ready to help, does that desk look approachable? So I already looked when I came into the Hilton. They've got the same kind of thinking as, I think it was Delta who started this, where they created their service point and there was nothing behind it. No printers, no cash register, so you're never gonna walk into a facility and see this. What they're always gonna do is have their staff facing forward. So it sounds like something simple, but in our system, we had a lot of things that were happening behind the desk, so when a customer walked in, they were most of the time seeing this and they didn't wanna bother the staff. So we looked outside of our own organization and our own environment to find something that we probably wouldn't have never thought of because we were, again, keeping ourselves within that little microcosm. So back to the empowered staff, and I gotta tell you, usually this is an hour presentation. I'm distilling it down to half an hour, so I'm gonna fly through all these slides now. It really is important. So if you get anything out of this, if some of the other examples or discussions and questions that'll hopefully come up at the end, but if you get nothing else out of this, understand that the only way this worked for us was because we involved the staff and we involved the staff heavily. We tried for many years prior to this to implement change by just saying, this is how we're gonna do it. Oh, we've come up with this fantastic new way of offering services. We're gonna have you guys, not even sit at the service point. We're gonna have you walk all over the floor, and this is what we've decided as management that we're gonna move this organization forward. It never worked. We spent a lot of money. We beat ourselves over the heads trying to figure out why it wasn't working until we actually involved them. And then they started telling us how they wanted to make the change because the way we said it is, here's what we want to achieve. Here's what you and us together, we're all going to be working towards. How are we going to get there? And the how we're going to get there, if you're willing to let go of some of the how we're going to get there, you'll find that you'll actually get there and you'll find some amazing things that your staff will actually offer up. And sometimes it'll be things that you've already thought of and you want to implement, and you don't even have to be the one who's saying it. The staff will be the ones who are offering it to you. So the staff engagement part and the buy-in are very key. If you're creating massive change, they have to be a part of that change. If they're not a part of that change, it's going to be a whole lot harder for them to move through the whole 7 stages of grieving, that whole thing. It's going to be a whole lot harder for them to go through that. They'll get stuck probably at the anger and the denial stage. Something else we implemented, sorry, let me just take a quick sip. Read that while I'm sipping. So this was the part that management had a huge, huge discomfort with. What we said to staff is, you know what? We're going to try new things. We are obviously making massive change. We're going to try new things. And you know what? Sometimes they're not going to work out. We're not going to get upset. We're going to learn from it. We're going to tweak it maybe, and we're going to stop doing it. And there's a lot of things that we were doing that nobody ever wanted to say stop to. They just wanted to continue doing it because they were either afraid to offend whoever started it, or that's the way it's always been done. Have you heard that before? So there was a lot of issues with moving on. And when we implemented this, again, this was a staff member who came up to us and said, I've heard about this. They're doing this. I think it was University of Guelph that started, or I can't remember, McMaster maybe, who started this whole fail camp for trying new innovative things, and if they don't work, you learn from it, you move on. And our logo, or our tagline is Imagine, Learn, and Grow. I just gave it away. But staff actually took the logo and inserted fail into it, and this, to me, is like the most brilliant thing. And this, again, staff came up with this. So our tagline for the library system was Imagine, Learn, and Grow. They inserted the word fail into it. Now, walk through this with me. You imagine something, you come up with something, you try it out, it fails. You learn from it, you grow, you move on, and it's actually a cycle. So again, staff-driven. Our marketing department had a bit of a fit at one point when this happened, but when we talked it through and we realized, you know what, this is amazing. This again is staff-driven. They are willing to now move along, and they're willing to work with us to make this happen. So again, this whole imagine, fail, learn, grow, you know, I'm almost willing to actually change it for the public as well, so they can see it this way. But this again has opened up our staff's minds to be able to move forward and to let go of some of the old ways and some of the things that, you know, they tried and they wanted desperately to have it work, and it didn't work. But we're now willing to give it up because that's the only way you're going to free up your resources to be able to do more or different things. And here's something else. Has anybody heard of Yammer? Yammer, yeah, good. Okay, some people have. It's kind of like an internal enterprise. Facebook is the closest thing I can kind of compare it to. It's closed to the outside, so it's within your organization only. And so when we launched this, our staff, at this point, I think we've probably got about 80% of our staff are on there. It's totally voluntary. They don't have to do this if they don't want to. But they've created their own little you know, personas, and they're on here now, commenting on strategy, commenting on initiatives, providing us with ideas of what we can do, and having discussions around it. So where this started is initially we'd asked our staff to do trend watching. We wanted them to be out there looking at how others are doing this. So back to that whole idea of we want to do something innovative, we want to look outside our own organization, outside of our own environment. And so we had them doing trend watching, and they were putting it in their monthly reports, and the managers would look at it, it would get filed away, nothing would happen to it. When we introduced this, we actually had staff post things, other staff comment on it, and then we've actually had initiatives come out of this that were born in this environment from staff having this discussion and kind of hammering it out and working it out, and then putting something forward saying this is how we want to do things. So again, totally staff engaged. Managers, senior managers, CEO will put stuff on there, but we're never going to comment. We're never going to, you know, go against what they're suggesting. We just let them have that discussion. And again, the group works it out amongst themselves. So you're never going to get, and we've never had an issue with staff putting something bad or something. And I've presented this, actually I've been asked to remove this slide at certain presentations because when I go to libraries to speak, they don't want to present this to their staff because they're afraid of how their staff are going to behave. And I guarantee you've got to let go of that mindset that your staff are bad. Your staff are good. They really are, and what it comes down to, and probably 90% of the time, what it comes down to is their expectations of what is good and what they're supposed to do is what they feel that they need to do. And if they're not doing it the way they should be doing it, it's probably because it hasn't been made clear what the expectation is. And that's what we realized. So we get amazing comments on here from staff about, and they're commenting about each other and providing recognition for each other. And so it's a much happier, much more lively environment, and the staff are all working together and understanding what direction we want to go. Something else which you might want to consider, which for us, every time we came up with a new strat plan or decided we were going to change the way we do things, we weren't quite matching our staffing structure to that. So to give you like a brief example, we wanted our librarians to get out into the community, to work out into the community, or get out into the community to work with the community, create partnerships within the community, yet we were scheduling them all to be on desk, offering service in the branch pretty much 7 hours a day. So here we are, we're telling you we want to go out into the community, develop these partnerships, but we're not giving you the time to do it. So the whole idea here is if you're changing your strategy, you've got to make sure that your staffing structure changes. And again, looking outside of our little library world, we realize that in business, staffing structures change on average every 18 months or so. So for us to hang on to a staffing structure from 10, 15 years ago and then implement all these changes, it's not going to work for us. So it's something that we realize that we have to change the staffing structure when we decide we're implementing something big, something new, something that actually requires the staff to do something different than what they're currently assigned to do. So it was a huge learning for us as well. The hiring process, we started looking at, as I mentioned, two of our managers, so in the library environment, you have to have that master's degree. You probably all know this, right? So you've got to get your master's. You go to library school, you either go into the museum stream or you go into the library stream. We have the requirement to be the master's degree, and then you're hired on as a librarian. For our managers, the requirement obviously was the master's degree with library experience and then we'll hire you as a manager if you haven't worked in the system. We quickly realized that, the master's degree is good because it gives them that background, but we may not actually want all that library experience because we're changing things, and if you're coming with this other frame of mind, unless you're willing to change with us, you're going to be left in that old way of doing things. So 2 of our most recent hires, managers, one was actually a manager at Starbucks, just finished her master's degree, and she is awesome. And the other one was a manager working for TD, well, it turned into TD, but it was a call center for TD dealing with loans and car loans and whatnot. So again, had the customer service philosophy, had the experience, and understood what libraries were about, but library experience wasn't it for us anymore. We realized the competencies that we require are different now than what other libraries are potentially doing. And for our existing staff, training. Again, it goes back to that whole thing. If you are expecting your staff to do something differently, but you haven't trained them on how this different thing looks like, you're not going to get to where you need to get to, and then you're just going to get frustrated. Here we are telling them we want them to do something different, yet they're not actually doing it. Well, maybe they don't know how to do it. And you know what? They're not going to tell you, especially in a situation where you go through change. The one thing that happens when you change is staff start to feel incompetent. Anybody starts to feel incompetent because you've been doing something for so long, all of a sudden we're changing it on you. You're no longer comfortable with that. So your level of competence or confidence in your competence goes down. So unless you're going to train them and explain to them that this is how we're doing and work with them to bring them along, they're going to resist because part of it is they don't want to look stupid, right? So they're going to resist. So training we found was really, really important. And it had to be specific to what we were asking them to do. Not just here's training, here's how we're going to do things. No, here are the steps, here's what we need to do, here's how we need you to behave, and here's the expectations around it. And again, we've seen a whole lot of improvement in how staff react and behave around the change. Customer engagement, so yeah, you want to do this because you want to make sure your customers are getting what they need. That's the one thing I'll say about it. So you got to know what your customers are looking for, your end users are looking for, what your patrons are looking for. What do they value in the services that you offer? And there's a whole other discussion around how you present that value. But for us, if all we were doing was presenting, here are the number of customers who are coming through the doors, here's the number of items that are circulating, that's not really value. So you want to make sure that you're connecting with what your customers or your end users perceive as value. So to give you a quick library example, if you're offering a program and it's, let's say in the library case, it's a summer reading program, is it just that you had X number of people go through the program? Or is it that you made a difference in the lives of those people who went through the program? So in the end, after they've gone through the program, they've maintained their reading skills throughout the year. So imagine how much more powerful that is when you present it to your stakeholders to say, you know what, it's not that we had 50 people or 1,500 people go through the program over the summer. That's good, that's operationally you want to know that. But the children who went through this program were able to maintain their reading skills throughout the summer. That's the difference you made. So your stakeholders, in our case, your funders, our board, or your counselors, they're going to want to know that you're making a difference in the lives of the people in your community. So you've got to be able to connect your value to what the customer wants, to the value that you bring to the community. And this just is, I usually get asked, in the library world, they want to know numbers, they want to see statistics, they want to see the proof. So this is the proof. The blue is our ratings prior to us starting this process. The green is after the process. We've basically taken the numbers and we've seen improvement in pretty much every area, and there's other areas that I didn't have room to put on, and I think I'm getting the hook shortly, yeah? So really what it comes down to is developing a culture of innovation, and the only way you're going to be able to do it is through engaging your staff and working with your staff. And I'm sorry, this is like a really short version. I'm trying to distill like usually an hour or a half-day course into a half-an-hour presentation. But if anything you get out of this is work with your staff, engage your staff in the process. If you want to see change succeed, your staff are the key to making that happen. Thank you.